One only has to look at special education learning centers to witness that there is indeed no limit to learning. There are 648 recognized centers and schools offering SPED in the country as of March 2018. Over 400 cater to elementary schools, while a little less than 200 offer it for high school students. During school year 2015 to 2016, there were around 350,000 children and youth with special needs who were enrolled in the program. As for the educators, well, there are only 2,600 for the elementary level, while there are only 280 SPED teachers for high schoolers. And with a dedicated budget for special education failing to make the cut in the 2019 budget, is the education sector really going beyond borders to educate the youth with special needs?
On today's agenda, let's take a look at an often overlooked part of our learning sector, special education or SPED. Is the country's program to educate the youth with special needs enough? Do we have the right curriculum? And have we trained enough educators to handle SPED? Let's talk about that together with the people who are at the very heart of the country's special education program. Good day, I'm Cito Beltran and we are One News. On today's Experts and Pros, a clinical therapist explains to us why inclusion and collaboration are the key word we need to know when we advocate for special education.
When I say we're moving towards inclusion and collaboration, what I mean is that individuals with special needs, they are accepted in schools and they are able to study with typically developing peers. They also are accepted in different work settings na. In the government, we have what is called yung disability offices. In terms of collaboration, there is support group for parents with special needs. And there's also collaboration among professionals in the SPED field. Hindi lahat ng LGUs in the Philippines are PW exclusive or PW inclusive. Only 60% daw have a disability office. Okay, so in terms of the government, what's needed is to have as many of our LGUs having that office, and also, of course, yung implementation kailangan din i-establish.
Thank you, Jessica Espanto, clinical therapist at Gray Matter Psychological Center. Time now for your TLC's tweets, likes, and comments.
Today's question: what policies do you suggest for government to improve the special education sector in the Philippines? Send us some TLC tweets, likes, and comments. Text us at 0939-369-9194 or connect with us on Facebook and Twitter at OneNewsPH and use the hashtag agenda on Cignal TV.
Okay, we have three advocates in our show today to give light to the plight of special education sector in the country. Let's get to know them more.
Dolores Dodi Cheng is founder and president of Center for Possibilities Foundation Incorporated, which aims to protect interests and rights of persons with special needs. She also runs SPED centers in Sagada and another one in Norzagaray, Bulacan. Aside from her advocacy, Cheng also has 40 years of experience in advertising and marketing. Priscilla Layton is a board member at Special Education Network or SENYA Manila. Layton is also Brent International School Manila's Middle and Upper School Student Services Coordinator, where she and her team provide support for students with special needs. Before moving to the Philippines, she also worked as a middle school special education teacher at Walnut Valley Unified School District at California, USA. Margo Palencia is a licensed professional teacher and special education practitioner for 20 years. She obtained her Master's of Arts, major in Special Education at the De La Salle University, Manila. Palencia is current directress and owner of Links Pro V8 Learning Center in Quezon City.
Okay, there was a time when people would talk about special kids or kids with a learning disability, a mental problem. It was like a voodoo thing. It was like a curse. It was like something you did not want to talk about. But thank God, things have changed. But sadly, we also come to realize as more people come out in the open, more people talk about it, you discover that more of us actually have someone related to us who is a special person. And today, let's discuss special education for those special persons. And with me, the ladies in black. What is going on here? You know, I was expecting, bright colors and
Mental
everything.
telepathy, what can I tell you?
Okay, just to put everything in perspective, I'll start from Priscilla. Priscilla, what got you into this? I mean, is there someone in your family? I mean, I have someone in my family.
Yeah, it's interesting you should ask that. Actually, when I was only about 14 years old, my niece, who was 1 year old at the time, was diagnosed with a very severe special need called Rett syndrome. And that kind of got me thinking about kids with special needs, the burden that families went through, but also the other side of special needs, which we know is the joy you get from the children and understanding that they still have a valuable contribution, even though they have a lot of special needs.
Okay, and in your case, Dolores, what's the story?
Well, I have a son who is now 25. He was diagnosed at age 2 with global development delay, which at that time was called something else. It was called the MR word.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we are not polite in the show. Okay, so we used to call it mentally retarded
Retardation,
because,
yeah.
for lack of
A better word.
a better word, a more compassionate term.
Yes.
Okay.
And so at that time, 20-some years ago, I don't think there was the internet yet.
No, I don't think
So I didn't have the access to information that parents do today. So I went headhunting, hunting for the right doctor who would tell me what I wanted to hear, and to understand what the condition was and what was the cause, what could be done, and so on.
Okay.
That was how.
Margot, in your case, what got you into SPED?
Well, for me, it was during college because we have a lot of exposure trips because I was taking up psychology. And then I was able to go to a SPED school, and I was inspired. I think I have this calling for them. And after college, I took up education, and I said I want to do special education, and until now, I'm in the practice for 20 years. So it's really more of a calling for me.
Okay, when you got into the field of special education, that was in college. I won't ask how many years
Of course.
that was, okay?
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
Dolores, you were pointing out that it was a time when there was no internet. And I would venture to guess that it was also a time when people didn't know how to deal with the situation.
Yeah.
It's a free-for-all, so ladies, go right ahead, share.
Well, at that time, all mothers who found they had children with special needs felt that there was something wrong with them. And at that time, also statistically, or so it's said, 50% of relationships or marriages wherein there was a child with special needs would end up in separation. I was such a statistic also.
Okay.
So, but it took me a while to get to come to terms with my son's condition, and I refused to send him to a special school because I refused to be defined, to have him defined by the label.
Okay.
So I sent him to regular schools, small clusters though,
Yeah.
not the big size schools. Until such times I finally realized that was all he could handle. He learned, they told me, I even brought him to Canada, Cito. I brought him to Canada, and at that time they told me he didn't have an IQ. They told me he would never learn more than one language, that I had to keep speaking to him in only one language so he wouldn't get confused. And they told me that it was irreversible. Irreversible, the condition was irreversible. So that was the situation at that time. So when he finally learned to memorize a song called Possibilities from You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, I did what any advertising mother would do. I had him record his songs. He recorded about 12 songs into a little disc. It was called With Love, Andreas. And that was the tipping point for me. That was when I decided that maybe...
Let me make you step back just a few steps. You know, did you, because I've been told this, that families, especially parents with special children, they kind of hate themselves, or there's like a guilt, or what did I do wrong?
Yes.
You know.
For parents, for sure.
Yes, and that's one thing that we're advocating to change, and why awareness about the abilities of kids with special needs is so important, because our society is still infected with the ancient negative misconceptions about kids with special needs.
Okay, what are these general misconceptions? I know in the Philippines or third world countries, they say, oh, it's a curse. You must have done something really bad, or your relatives did something bad, and now God is punishing you.
Well, it comes down to what you believe about the value of human life. And I happen to believe that every child is created in the image of God with a special set of strengths and weaknesses. And every child can make a contribution to society that only that child can make. So whether a child is disabled or not does not take away from the fact that they are important and special and valuable, and that there is so much we can learn from them.
But like in my case, because I don't have a child, so I didn't experience it firsthand, but normally my clients or my students would come to me, especially if they found that there's a delay. The first thing is they would ask really is, what did I do? They would really blame themselves, and then they would have all this hearsay from other people. It's the blood compatibility. You didn't check the genes, or maybe you came from the same family, something like that. Or until it evolved and you were too stressed out. That's why it happened to you. And then eventually now they say it's because of age and all. But normally it will start with the parents. They would really ask you, what did I do? Is this irreversible? Can we cure them? Those are the first things. So the first is really denial. They would really go for denial.
Okay, we'll go for a break, ladies, and we'll come back right away, and let's move forward with from discovery, denial, to action plan. Okay, we'll be right back here on Agenda to talk more about advancing special education in the Philippines. Okay, you're back here on Agenda, and we're discussing the special education needs in the Philippines, and with us are our panelists. Okay, we discussed why you got into it. For many, it's personal, a family member, and for you, Margot, it was professional, it was your chosen course.
Yes.
But why? I mean, being a teacher is difficult already.
Yeah.
Being a special education teacher, I just want to emphasize this.
Yeah.
This is a serious challenge, and it takes commitment.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of people who are asking me like, "What's wrong with you? Why this major?"
Yeah.
It's simply because I want to teach children who could use what I'm teaching for life. I've been a student also, and I teach a lot of things. I've been a science teacher. I teach a lot of things that we don't really use in our life. But with special kids or children with special needs, you teach them something that they could use for their whole entire life, and that is very functional. I really believe in functional literacy.
I've taught kids in children's church, and it put me in my place. I mean, no ego, no age, no power or authority can make a child follow you. But a special child, how do you even do it? How do you, Dolores, how do you even figure things out?
Well, first of all, I'm going to paraphrase someone's quotation. I can't remember who he is anymore. But he always said that with special children, you have to treat them as children first, special second. Therefore, like children, they need guidance, but they need love. They also need discipline. So you treat them the way you would treat any child. That's the whole point of inclusion as well.
And it's really about growth. It's not so much about hitting a specific outcome.
Yes.
With our special kids, we see where they came from and we celebrate where they're going and the progress they have made.
I think the nice thing about special children is that as parents, there's only one reminder. You suspend all expectations. Whereas with ordinary children, regular children, or typical children as they're called today, we plot out they will take high school from this age to this age, they will take college, they will take masters, they will marry so and so, so and so, and things like that. With a special child, God made it in such a way that you can't plot it out.
You're not in charge.
You're not in charge, He is.
Okay.
He is. And the nice thing about this situation is that I dare say, I'm not academic, okay? But I dare say that most special children are pretty happy the way they are. They don't know any other world except the world they're in.
Okay.
So our challenge is to be able to try to speak with them on their level. And it doesn't mean speak down or speak up, it's speak to them on their level, one-on-one.
Okay, Priscilla, you were talking about inclusion. You and
Yes.
Dodi were talking about inclusion. How do you make people understand the situation? Because, I look at your son, he's 25 years old, I'm looking at a man. Mentally, I'm judging him as a man. And then you, as the experts, are reminding me he's a child first, not a man. How do you get people to understand the concept of inclusion when their brain is telling them this and the reality is telling them that?
Yes, there is a disconnect with expectations and reality, but I think, again, it comes down to helping people see the value of a human life and the contribution that these kids can make regardless of age or where they are in life. The first thing we need to do is help people to understand the valuable contribution kids can make, even if it's not maybe what a mother initially expected or dreamed. We also need to understand the value of inclusion for all children. There's fascinating research coming out saying that non-disabled children who are educated alongside of their disabled peers score higher in math, literacy, have higher high school graduation rates.
As well as emotional quotient. Emotional
Excellent,
intelligence.
hugely more emotional intelligence. They're able to go out into the workforce with less biases, a higher ability to get along. So if you as a school are wanting to increase all of these things in your best and brightest, I'll just say, one thing you can do is adopt an inclusion program, understanding it benefits everybody.
Inclusion is nothing more than life itself. Because
true.
in life, we are typical and atypical live alongside each other. So why should the educational environment be any different?
We live in an inclusive world, and then
Yeah.
we create exclusive schools.
But okay, aren't we being, Margot, aren't we being perfectionists? Because I'm the outsider here, okay?
Yeah.
So you have to be fair also, okay? My thinking is, they are special, so let's give them special. So are you saying that we need to include them so that they'll have the challenge?
I'm saying you give them special, you give them the support and the resources they need, but it is within the regular environment.
Margot?
Let me explain first what is inclusion, because maybe we are confused what inclusion is.
Okay.
Before in the Philippines, we just practice mainstreaming, which means you have to attain the intellectual capability before you could really go to grade 1. But now, the inclusive program means we go by age, regardless, even if you can really be a grade 1 student. Even if your mental capability is only 4 years old, but you're already 7, inclusion means we just put him there in grade 1.
Okay.
Priscilla was saying it's beneficial because there are some developmental areas in a child that can be taught by the peers.
Socialization.
But
Socialization.
actually,
okay.
teachers cannot.
Getting along with people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is a life skill.
That's interesting because I have an only child, daughter, and she grew up isolated in the house with us. And when we brought her to her first kiddie party, she couldn't function. She couldn't compete with children in the games, in grabbing for things, and she would just break down and cry. And that's what made us realize that we have to take her out more, and we have to put her in a
Right.
normal situation, or she won't be able to compete.
Yes.
So-
Because there's a lot of things that actually parents cannot teach. You cannot teach a 4-year-old how to speak like a 4-year-old. But when you mingle them with same age, those children, as you say, you cannot control them. So they won't really,
But won't they be subjected to bullying, ridicule?
That's a-
if
that's
the
a
children
risk.
knows, if
That's a
they are
risk.
labeled.
If the children are labeled, I think that's why alongside inclusion, there's a new, it's not called politically correct, but the fact is we're a little more careful with how we call people,
Aware and sensitivity.
aware and sensitivity. That's
And
true.
that fear for bullying and exclusion, yes, that may start in elementary, but these kids are going to grow up. So we need to teach our non-disabled children how to treat special ed children so that they know how to teach individuals in society with
Do you have
disabilities.
to be a special ed teacher to teach that? Or should regular teachers understand that that's just part of the situation?
I think teachers normally should have one criterion, compassion.
Yes.
Okay.
That you can't learn from school, that you can't graduate with a degree for. But if you have compassion, that's the first step. That
Okay.
way, that's number one.
We'll go for a break, and I think we just discovered something. Maybe you can elaborate on this. Should all teachers be required to at least have 1 semester of special education training? Okay, after the break, let's continue to sift through the state of special education in the country. Keep it here on Agenda. Okay, how familiar are people with SPED? How well versed are they? Okay, when we went into the break, I was asking Margot, are teachers or education students going through education course, are they required to have 1 semester of SPED?
Well, they're not required. We have elective subjects. Normally, it's introduction to SPED, just like that. But it's not really a mandatory that you will take special education subjects. I mean, like,
I'm thinking, I'm coming from that view where if all teachers underwent this kind of training, regular or special, they would be more competent and perhaps be more compassionate or understanding of what they're dealing with in the classroom.
Absolutely.
yes, of course.
Yes, there's a direct correlation with teacher education on special education and successful inclusion programs.
And you were saying during the break, Priscilla, that even in the United States, it's not a mandatory requirement.
Yeah, correct. When I got my undergraduate degree 11 years ago, there was not an undergraduate course in special education offered. I couldn't get my degree in that. I had to go on and get a master's in special education so that I could study special education. That may have changed now. One thing I've been very impressed with here in the Philippines is the quality of the teacher preparation program and the quality of the special education training programs out of UP University.
Okay.
And what we were talking about at the break is this is a fantastic resource that the Philippines has. However,
It's a resource that has been discovered by North America.
Yes.
Because a lot of our special ed practitioners, teachers, and therapists are being invited to join North America because of the unique type of training and exposure that they have here.
But also because I guess in a way it's our disposition, our cultural. I mean, culturally we're compassionate people,
yes.
so that really helps. But that's ironic that we're building them up and exporting them.
Yes.
Yes, we are exporting
Yeah,
them.
because in the Philippines we have a course,
Yes.
like we have major in English, and we also have major in special education, which
Yeah.
Priscilla was saying they don't have in the States. So we really produce very good teachers who majored it for like 4 years, plus your master's degree and the trainings.
And they have internships too.
Yes,
Yeah.
different internship.
Where would you even go for internship for
Well,
SPED? I'm sorry.
You go
know,
for internship in two places. First is the private educational
Yes.
institutions, and that's a wellspring of opportunity and experience there. And secondly is after that they go to the public school.
Yes.
They go to public school. Those 2 years minimum training are so invaluable and make them so attractive
Yes.
to our international colleagues.
Absolutely. I have worked with incredible, well-trained teachers in this country and been very sad to see them leave.
Okay, we'll go for a break, and well, we're happy you're here, so maybe we'll do an exchange
There you
program.
go.
Okay, we'll go for a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the day's agenda with our special education advocates, and keep it tuned here.
The Congress has finally passed a 3.7 trillion peso national budget for 2019. However, when it comes to additional funds, the Education Department is left wanting. DepEd's plea for a new special education allocation was rejected. The agency says it was not even considered by the Budget Department.
We were asked to submit our proposal on special education. So in fact, we submitted 3 major items to be funded. But then in 2015, 2016, that program support funds was already embedded in the MOOE because of the fact that we are now encouraging all schools to mainstream our learners with disabilities. In fact, that is now the direction of the Department of Education. As much as possible, we want all schools, if it's necessary for them to implement a program to address the specific needs of a learner. For example, if you have only 1 or 2 learners with disabilities, the proposed budget for 2019 was not approved by DBM. Whatever is the allotted budget for the basic education curriculum, we get a partial of that fund to finance the implementation of a special education.
Right now, special education, or SPED, remains as a priority of the department. But without a specified funding for it, they have been maneuvering their existing budget while relying on external stakeholders. Officials are well aware that if the status quo will last, it will be tough to make any dent in the sector.
We will continue to.
Okay, your reaction, please. Apparently, the Department of Budget doesn't believe in giving special funds for special education.
You know, we have a saying that probably they're a bunch of special kids too, just not diagnosed.
Okay, okay.
Which is why they haven't come to the realization that we
Yeah, Margot?
Well, it's very frustrating, especially for an academician like me, because I'm really pushing for teachers training. And that budget could go for teachers training. If you go for inclusion, the teachers cannot give what they don't have.
Okay.
So if you don't give them trainings, how can they even teach?
Well, what is the government's attitude in the United States? I mean, you're from California. You studied there. What is the attitude of the state in terms of special education and funding?
Yes, I would say we do have a lot more funding and there is a lot of inclusion and kids can avail of a lot of services like occupational therapy, speech therapy, psychological services all within the regular school. They do still have some special schools, but there's a huge push for inclusion, full inclusion and mainstreaming.
But the budget, there is a special education budget.
Yes, it is funded.
Okay. Now, Dolores, you were mentioning off-cam that there's a disparity in terms of population because a lot of our special education experts and teachers are migrating to North America, and you said
the Middle East.
And the Middle East. Okay.
Yeah.
But you said something about statistics, population.
Yeah. One of the things I learned starting with the foundation was that according to the United Nations statistics, they estimate about 5% of a total population has special needs or disabilities, physical, intellectual, mental, orthopedic, visual, and the like. But there is a caveat there that says that it's probably more along 10% rather than 5%, because in third world countries like our own, there are many who are undocumented and therefore undiagnosed and therefore untreated.
Okay, and to them it's still a mystery. Like you put up a center in Sagada.
We put up a SPED center in Sagada. It was a beautiful village effort, community effort with the Anglican Church of St. Mary of the Virgin, and as well as the local government unit, together with Mayor James Booten, as well as Vice Mayor Ben Kapunan. They helped us together with the Episcopal Women's Club to put up a center. They gave us a shed. We put in the teacher, we hired the teacher, we brought in the materials, and they helped us invite the kids to come. And sometimes the vice mayor's office would help us bring some of the kids who could not travel, could not walk, to come to school, to the center.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful community effort, and that was what made it unique.
Okay. It's bad news, and we will put as much pressure as we can on Congress regarding budgeting. But what's the good news? What are the good stories about SPED in the Philippines?
I think there's a lot of organizations pushing towards inclusion, and as a world, there's been a lot of international movements towards inclusion through UNICEF and even the UN as well. One thing I love about the Philippines is how passionate and compassionate the people are, and there are so many opportunities to get involved and to help, so many organizations wanting to help with special needs. One of those ones is SENYA, which is Special Education Network in Asia. Our Manila chapter is very active. One of the things we do is we do an annual award, an advocacy award and a student award. And Dolores was actually nominated for our advocacy award a couple years ago, which is a great honor and showing that she has made a difference within her community in advocating for individuals with special needs.
Okay, Dolores, any good news as an advocate? And I mean, you're putting your own money down on this project.
Yes, we are subsidizing the classes in Sagada, but it's one child at a time. That's the progress that we have. I mean, today we have about 30 children in Sagada who are in the center. We've just been told that they're the local government unit there, as well as the Episcopal Church, will help us by giving us a bigger building so that we can service about 98 to 120 kids. So that's great news too.
Okay.
Well, it's great news for me, but not great news for my donors. I do have events that we do ask them to help us with. It's a benefit concert on the 2nd of March. It's a Saturday at the RCBC Plaza, the 4th floor, the Carlos B. Romulo Auditorium. It's called Love Inclusively. And it's a concert. It's got a small creative exhibit called Art Exceptional, where we have Vico Cham, Samantha Caspar, Juno Santos, painting, and Samantha is launching her perfume line, which she selected herself. And then these three kids, together with another boy, Henry Munariz, will be performing with the Manila Symphony Orchestra, as well as Ogie Alcacid, who is one of UP graduates, and who, out of the compassion of his heart, agreed to help with the cause.
I'm discovering, Margot, that there are many celebrities in the Philippines who actually have special children. Do you know of any? I'm sorry, but I haven't heard of anyone coming out in the open and saying, hey, I have a special child. I'm pushing for the interest of special children?
Oh, there's one that I know who's open to it. Miss Candy Pangilinan.
Candy Pangilinan, okay. So she's
open.
an advocate?
Yeah, she's an advocate.
open,
She
yeah.
helps Autism Society of the Philippines for some projects, but not everybody's open to
Why
it.
is that? Because you would think, hey, I'm sorry, Dolores. I'm sure you live with this fear. What happens when you pass? Who's going to
Yes.
take care of your children?
Yes.
As a parent, I think we would all be interested in stepping up and standing up and saying, I'm a parent of a special child, and I will fight for the rights of my special child. Why is there a reluctance?
First, it's because of the acceptance of the community. You feel you don't really feel good in saying that you have a special child because they will judge your kid. So
Is that still the case?
there's still a lot.
It still is. My son is 25, has a girlfriend who does not totally understand his condition, and he gets bullied. He gets bullied when he goes into the malls with her sometimes. So his frustration levels are very, very, very high.
Yeah, at that age, at
that
age
age.
25.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the misconceptions about special needs are still the basic, the fundamental reason why there's a lot of reticence about coming out. First, they think special needs is contagious.
Yes.
They think special needs are crazy people.
Yes.
They think special needs is a disease. And they think that it's inherited, it's hereditary.
And that's why awareness is so important, so that we can demystify the lies behind individuals with disabilities.
Okay, we'll go for a break, ladies, and when we finally go to our final gap, we will talk more about the good news and what can we as non-special children parents do for the special needs kids here on Agenda.
No better way to understand persons with special needs than lending them our ears. 33-year-old Jose Luis Naval, who lives with autism, shares his ups and downs and what inspired him to establish his advocacy group, Autism Strong Philippines.
When I was a kid, they think that I was okay because I was so smart. I was doing well in school ever since elementary. I was used to be a very smart student. It was very difficult at first. Even when I transferred to college, already I had difficulty socializing. Especially I'm very particular in terms of choosing my own friends. After I resigned from my first job, I had to look for another job because I had to look for my skills, find my skill set. I had to look for a good environment which I can do on my own. I also experienced workplace bullying. When I left, I experienced depression. The one that came up with Autism Strong Philippines is where, actually it doesn't have a name at first. It started out with just pencil, permanent marker, and white cartolina. We shared it to our church friends at first. Then soon enough, became widespread to colleges and universities which cater to psychology and special education. My message for the parents and kids who are diagnosed with persons with autism is never lose hope. You have to leave your comfort zone. With the skills that you have, you can be productive, you can be more energetic, and you can help contribute in the society.
Okay, you're back here on Agenda, and we're still talking about SPED. And Margot, you during that VTR, you said, if there's something I can change or say...
I just want to say that when we deal with, they call it SPED kids, actually they should be addressed as child with special needs or children with special needs. It only means that they can learn, but in a different way. They have a special need, so they need accommodation, they need adaptation, but they can learn. So
You know,
that's one thing that they should understand, that it's not
Cito.
contagious.
Like, there are no two identical thumbprints. There are no two identical cases of special needs. Every condition is different. Even if you say one has autism, the other's also in the spectrum, it's very different. That's why the individual education program is so important. You design a learning program for each. I think special needs children only are God's way of telling us, hey guys, raise them the way I wanted you to raise them, one at a time, carefully, one-on-one. Because we seem to put them all in schools and everybody's all together. But with special education, you have to give them one-on-one attention.
And understanding that all children are a mix of strengths and a mix of weaknesses,
Yeah.
just like we're strengths. We are a mix of strengths and a mix of
You
weaknesses.
just have to find that strength.
Yes. Actually, they say, I read a statistic the other day that said 1 in 10 adults actually have a learning disability and successfully hide it from their work supervisors,
Not only their work supervisors, their families.
their friends and families.
Their
Yes.
friends and families.
Especially
No,
now.
I remember my mom used to have this poster in her office. You don't have to be crazy to work here, but it helps. Okay, but here's the thing. I was in a restaurant fairly recently, and a family came in, and the child started acting up. You know, screaming, not violently, not angrily, but you know,
Just noisy.
Just noisy, really noisy.
yeah.
And one look, and I said, okay, special child. And we didn't think about it, you know, we just carried on. And the parents stood up, took the child to another table, and I stopped them. I said, we know, and we understand, and you don't have to do that. Now, there are many people who don't know how to react.
Right.
What should Filipinos or even anyone watching the program understand, and how should they conduct themselves when faced with this situation?
As a parent, I would appreciate it when people didn't talk over my son's head.
Right.
Explain
Like,
that.
You know, is he okay? Does he understand?
You need to address the
You
child.
need to talk to the child directly.
Oh, like, you know, if Jessica would start trying to speak to me in English Tagalog because she assumed I can speak English
Yeah,
because
there
I'm
you
a
go.
native. Something like that.
Something like that. Also, that's the reason why we had some airlines and some retailers had problems with special needs. You have to treat them with respect, and with respect means you don't touch them unless you're invited to touch them. You know, sometimes when you touch the children or the individuals, they recoil and they become violent because it's as though their space is being invaded and
They
violated.
don't know you. Familiarity
don't
is
know
very
you.
important.
It's like I remember someone who was I think deaf mute, and when I reached out like that, you know, it's like, hey, and went like this, and then he started doing sign language, and I kind of figured, be careful because our eyes is our only, you know, sense
Of knowing the world.
knowing the world, and you
Yes.
know, you might injure my eyes. So same thing with
Same thing with
Okay.
And-
Yeah.
Being respectful, being compassionate, and being non-judgmental is key.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, or at least ask the parent, how can I be of help? That you care and you respect. I think the most important thing that a family with a child with special needs wants is for you to respect us.
Okay. Now, how did this affect you, Dolores, as a boss? Because I know eventually you retired, you gave up the ad agency thing, or did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. Oh, okay. So you
No, I
carried
didn't.
on. But
Couldn't.
how-
Had to keep working.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought you did for a while.
No, that's okay.
But in
it
any case,
retired me, though. I'm
okay.
serious.
How did it change you as an employer? You know, coming from, I mean, if I were an employer and I knew that Priscilla or Margot had a special child, how am I supposed to show my compassion and my support?
I think people are people first. You know, special needs or not, they're people first. And all people have good days and bad days. All people have learning levels, learning cycles, learning curves. All people have they just have different ways of caring, expressing, communicating, and working and learning. That's all that was in my head all this time. You know, so I'll give you a nice joke. Sorry. Millennials are a different generation from where I come from. So I work a lot with very young, very brilliant kids. They're no different from working with people with disability. You have to understand and respect their personalities, their characters, as well as their needs. That's all.
Okay. Priscilla?
I think the value of human life, again, is essential. Understanding that an individual with special needs has a valuable contribution to make that only they can make. And if we fail to include individuals with disabilities, we're actually the ones missing out.
Okay. Well, I'll have to leave it at that, ladies, and we hope that you'll continue with your work. It's invaluable, and
Thank you.
you're welcome to come to the program anytime you have a special event or something you want to do. Okay, and that was your first look at today's agenda. I guess the only thing I can add to what's been said is love. You need to love people. And as gruff and as grumpy and as nasty as I can be, I've come to discover that when I show my love for people, they love me back. Special children are no different. Let's give them the same amount of love we want from them. And if they would let us, then give them a hug. I think that's the best sign of respect you can show them. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter at One News PH. I'm Cito Beltran. We are One News.